Hey there, fans of the Survivor Super Fun Time Show. This is Kevin from the Super Fun Time Show. And full disclosure, I already recorded a review the last 20 minutes, and apparently none of it was any good. So I'm sad. So now I have my glasses on, so you can't see how sad my eyes are. But this is a recap episode from Survivor 46. Great last episode that we had just had. Really dominated by Q. Largely dominated by Q, which is pretty wild. I did not expect it to be such a wild, unhinged episode from Q. We really ran kind of the spectrum of things we can expect from Q. We saw strategy. We saw exertion of power. We saw little kitty games. We saw the Shark Tank version of Q trying to sell a Q skirt. It was actually a really big episode for Q. But I liked it. It was also a little crazy at the same time. And we're going to get into that. But first, remember, if you want to be a member of this community, you want to help out the channel, this super fun channel, you want to do an awesome thing, please hit that subscribe button. And of course, give a thumbs up, comment down below, all that fun stuff, because anything you can do in that realm helps out this channel greatly, therefore increasing my happiness and making my glasses even more black and yellow checkered. But getting into it, this episode, the biggest kind of beats that we could get from the episode, the first thing is, the beginning, we really get the result of what happened at the previous tribal council, which is the one where Soda was voted out. When Soda was voted out, Venus took all the credit at the tribal council. Tevin silently was like, no, it was me. And then third layer, it was Liz going, no, me. And it's funny, all these Nami people are taking credit for getting rid of Soda, which, by the way, for Tevin, she's one of your numbers, babe. Why are you getting rid of one of your numbers? And maybe Tevin thought that she wasn't as solid of a number as maybe he would have liked, but it seemed pretty clear that Soda was definitely a number of some type. Like, at the very least, Soda wasn't actively against him, even if not totally for him. So I will never understand why Tevin voted his own number out. I talked about this with Austin from Survivor 45 last week, and there is no explanation. You know, Austin is the exact opposite on Reba. He kept his numbers as long as he possibly could. Tevin was willing to say, well, Soda's not my number. Goodbye, even though Soda was one of his numbers, at least for a good while. And what's interesting about this is, I mean, Venus was trying to make clear that, you know, she orchestrated this and she's got some footing in the game. But no, that's not the case. I mean, Tiffany laid it out later on in the episode. Why are we trying so hard to get rid of Venus when she's a pest, but she's not a threat? And I think that's a correct read by Tiffany in that regard. She's right. Tiffany's been thinking endgame for a long time, and I think she's totally correct. The Yanu 3, like Kenzie said, have been driving the vote from the merge on pretty consistently, and they got to watch out for that. But Tiffany right here is another example of how she's been doing that. Or Q in particular, this is another example this episode on how he's been doing it, except albeit he's been doing it in kind of crazier ways. He formed the +1 alliance with a bunch of folks, which actually has been pretty lucrative for the most part when he hasn't actively been blowing it up, of course. Yeah, I think it's been pretty good. I mean, the original +1 alliance, you got Tim and Maria from Siga, you got Q and Tiffany from Yanu, and then finally you have Tevin and Hunter from Nami, and they formed it at the Journey that one time. But the problem is not last episode, but the one before, they voted out Tim. So that means Charlie had to fill in Tim's spot on the +1 alliance. Then Soda goes, and then this episode, by the end, another member of the +1 alliance is out of the game. And largely due to Q's doing. I mean, no matter what, there was going to be a member of the +1 alliance that was going to go thanks to Q one way or another by the end of this episode. So the +1 alliance is being driven by Q, and it was started by Q, but Q is also the main factor that's dismantling it too at the same time. But non-strategically, the biggest thing for Q this episode was he did a whole segment on the Q skirt, which I thought was fun. It was light. It added a bit of levity to the game. You know, so many people in the new era, they are fans of watching the new era. They said, this is unwatchable. It's a bunch of game bots. It's silly. And then we have some segments where you get to see some human aspects of folks where Q is like, I'm going to flip a hoodie around, put it over my junk, and we're going to call it the Q skirt. Everyone's going to want it. It's going to cost less than, you know, a fanny pack and a tool bag or whatever, all mixed together. Fun moment. Tevin, you know, indulges. Charlie indulges. Everyone has a little bit of fun with it. And then to add on to that fun, Q, who we're starting to learn is actually like a little kid at his core, he decides, you know, we should play hide and go seek. We should go play hide and go seek with everybody in the tribe. We wanted to do it at Yanu, but we couldn't because they sucked and they kept getting voted out. So they said, at the merge, let's go play hide and go seek, and everyone goes and hides, and Charlie goes to seek. But what we find out from Q is that it actually had nothing to do with playing a nice, lighthearted game of hide and go seek. Instead, it was all about a strategic input instead of just having fun with hide and go seek. Instead, it was an opportunity for Q to learn how people hide and then go seek. Ultimately, if they're too shifty, they go right out of the game. If they're not shifty enough, wow, they're too transparent and super shallow, out of the game. Like, no matter what anyone did in hide and go seek as a strategy, they had to get out of the game. And that's what we learned from Q. And that's where we learned that Q's kind of a kook in some ways. Like a good, healthy kook, but like a coach kook. Kind of. And it's really funny. I never would have pegged Q for that. When this game started, I was like, listen, Q is going to be like a meathead who thinks he's a lot more strategic than he actually is at the game. He's going to overplay his hand quick. Q has outlasted my expectations of him, that's for sure, up to this point, and he's done really well. But I did not see this coming from him. However, it is something that I think you can highlight in Q, which is really interesting, is that I think he has like 17 brothers and sisters, and I'm wondering if I'm starting to see it come through, the fact that he didn't have quite the childhood that maybe some other folks did. So like that's why he has these really, really goofy and fun moments in his game that can be a bit naive and childish at times. But I think it makes him a really fun and well-rounded character in the game. But it's funny how he interacts with some of these folks because like the way he deals with power, I think is really not great in the game. Like it seems to work in many ways. Like he's very social. It seems to largely work. He seems to be decisive in many ways too, which is great. But I noticed when he talks to the Yanu 3, particularly Tiffany, when he talks to Tiffany, the dynamic is different. He is more receptive to Tiffany, and I think he's more intimidated by Tiffany personally. And I think Tiffany treats him like a big sister, and she's not willing to deal with his bull. So when I see those two interact is really interesting. And I only noticed this because I've had to rewatch episodes a few times in order to edit videos and everything. And I noticed they just communicate differently than other pairs of people. And it's fascinating. There's a survivor from Survivor Worlds Apart named Tyler. He was really great. Probably could have won the game if he had just made it one or two more votes and Mike Holloway didn't immunity his way to the end. But he laid out a great psychological profile of Q from this past episode, and I thought it was brilliant. So I'm gonna include it here, but you can read it. I thought it was super, super brilliant. And I think that's what we're dealing with Q. And none of that's bad. I think it's fine. It's just who he is. And it all ties into the end of the game, which I'll speed through real quick. I mean, it goes right to the immunity challenge where Jeff Probst says, all right, you all are going to do the challenge where you hang on a pole. And the longest person that can hang up on the pole wins immunity. But before we do that, this is the negotiation challenge where if 4 of you will sit out of this challenge and give up your shot at immunity, you will get rice the rest of the game. Q is like, I'm probably not going to win. I will sit out. And then Liz decides to sit out, but no one else will do it. No other people will give up their votes either in order to possibly make that deal. And Q is very angry. Q gets knocked out of the game right away. Liz is knocked out, and a few other people are knocked out very quickly. And Q's like, see what I mean? We would have won. We'd have gotten rice. And he threw a little temper tantrum. And the eventual winner was Hunter, by the way. Charlie made to the final 2. Venus, final 3. Venus made sense. I usually would expect a tiny woman to win this challenge unless your name is Ozzy. But actually, the final 2 were Charlie and Hunter, which is pretty impressive. Good. Charlie cracked me up. I love Charlie this episode. Charlie hanging on the pole, and when he was just about to hit the bottom, he said, "Jeff, I'd like to negotiate. I've got all the leverage now." So I think we need 2 bags of rice. He was really funny. But Hunter ended up winning the challenge, surprise. And Hunter did this thing where he like flexed, he like leaned back and said, "Hey, I would have used this if I needed it." And he just showed another example as to why he's a threat moving forward. When I was sitting at home, I was watching this with my mother. It was her birthday, and I went to Philadelphia, and I said, "Oh, we'll watch it together like in old days." And we were watching this challenge, and when Hunter did that, I said, "They got to vote this bitch out." And that's no disrespect. That's actually me saying it with the utmost respect, saying we got to vote this bitch out. That means Hunter is individually just, he's a beast. He was a beast in team challenges, and he was a beast at this one. This was a challenge other people probably were better suited to win, and he still won it. So that was something that I saw right away. He's got to lower that threat level because he's got problems. Spoiler alert, Tevin ends up going home at the end of this episode. His number 1 ally. Yes, he's got a hidden immunity idol, and he could technically immunity his way to the end, but he's got to watch out now from moving forward, especially when he does a flex like that. Anyway, they get back to camp, kind of bringing it back to Q a little bit. Tiffany and Q were talking about who to go next, and Tiffany mentions Maria. Then Q hears that, and Q does not like that. Q says, okay, well, if you're going to vote for one of the +1 Alliance members, which, by the way, Tiffany's in +1 Alliance too, then you got to go. So Q starts to turn the vote on Tiffany, his like number one since the beginning of the game. Cannot understand it. It's like there's a barrage of people who want to get rid of their number ones in this game. It's fascinating. Anyway, they go through all the cycles of it, and everyone's informed. But then Liz, Big Liz Wilcox Liz, ends up saying, no, I want Tevin gone, which is her number one. It's really fascinating. They all are trying to vote each other's number ones out, and the tide turns to where everyone knows it's going to be Tevin going instead. And Q, not happy about it. He goes and tells Hunter. Hunter's very not happy about it. And Hunter does the last minute thing where he says, like, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And, everyone plays that game of going, I don't know. And they go to tribal council pretty much assuming that Tevin's going to go. But before it really kicks off, they get to tribal and, Q goes, by the way, before we really get deep into this, the only person who's going home is me. And everyone at tribal council, like myself at home, were like, what the hell is he talking about? Like, I could not believe that Q was just volunteering to quit. Now, supposedly, maybe it was a three-dimensional move to somehow reshuffle the vote to the way he wanted it to be. It could have been that way. I don't know. I will say if Q, after the game is over, says that's what it was, all I know is Q has said he definitely threw the first immunity challenge on purpose. He said that he did not try to quit the original sweat. So I don't know if he's lying about these things. I don't know if he's just a mega troll. I don't know. But all I do know is Q asked everyone to vote for him and said that he should be the one that goes because he feels a little bit guilty about basically throwing out Tevin's name and putting people at danger, their games at danger last minute by telling Hunter. And I just was so confused. He was screwing over Kenzie and Tiffany and a bunch of other people, the +1 Alliance. And there was a big live tribal. Big live tribal happened. Which, by the way, I'd like to take a second and say firmly, I love live tribals. I think we don't get enough of them. I think they're really cool. As a player, I'm sure they're infuriating. But as a viewer, amazing. Give me them all. All of them. Somehow, they all didn't vote out Q in the end result of it. But what we did find out during the live tribal was Q told Tiffany, by the way, they were going to vote you out tonight. And Tiffany was shocked. And then Tiffany talks to Charlie during the live tribal and says, was it going to be me? Charlie said, no, it's going to be Tevin, but it was going to be you. And no matter what you have, the idol that Q told us about, don't use it. Tiffany, of course, tells Kenzie and is furious that Q would give up that information because that's critical to her game. It's critical probably to Q's game too. But Q is playing so many different games. Like, I think Q has this dimension to him where he's like Russell Hantz. He likes to get the plan in order. He likes to be the top dog. He likes to be the shot caller, like in a pod boss. And if you don't do exactly what he says, you got to go. And that is Russell Hantz to a T. And it makes him an incredibly interesting and fun character. No question. And I absolutely love that about him. But it's so wacky. He's way closer to Benjamin Coach Wade than I ever thought would have been the case. He's closer to Russell Hantz than I ever thought would be the case. But he is providing a lot of entertainment. However, the strategy is just so all over the place. It's kind of like Venus. This is the first episode in a while where I saw Venus on the screen and I thought objectively really entertaining. However, I thought the strategy was like, you look so dopey. They're kind of in the same category for me right now, but in very different ways. The voting confessionals were really funny. People were like, this is stupid. I don't know what's going on, da-da-da-da. But once the votes are read, we find out that Tevin is voted out not almost unanimously, with every vote other than Tevin and Hunter's votes, which went to Venus. Q got 0 votes in that whole thing. 0 votes. And if Q really wanted to go home, this is a case where his alliance refused to let him go home because he was important to their games, more than keeping Tevin in the game. And Tevin had an extra vote. So if they could get rid of that advantage, that's really helpful. Now at this point, I think there are no extra votes left in the game anymore because Maria used hers and Tevin's gone. Now, as far as idols go, Hunter still has an idol. Tiffany still has an idol. The big dogs you have to worry about now are Hunter and Tiffany. And Tiffany, thankfully, did not use her idol this go around. I can't wait till next episode. Tiffany and Kenzie are going to be furious at Q. A lot of people are going to be upset. I hate losing Tevin. Absolutely hate losing Tevin in this game. However, I think Liz was probably wise in the end to get rid of Tevin, maybe, mainly because she was wise enough to know that she needs to do something in order to prove herself at the end. The vote that she had orchestrated with Tevin is being taken over by Tevin and Venus for, when they got rid of Soda. So she's got to build a resume of some sort. Now, the big thing is she has to do the Gabler thing from 43. She has to get her threat level, which is going to be closer to up here, and bring it back down. She needs to go back underwater. So when she gets to the final 3, she can talk about these things. Because if Liz gets to the final 3, she is going to be very, very good with the jury. So they have to watch it. But the problem is there's a lot of people that I think could do really well in the final 3. Kenzie would do great. Tiffany would do great. I think Charlie would do great. I think Maria could do great. I'm not so sure about Ben at this point. Venus, no shot. I don't think that Hunter would do well. I think his game's done. As much as I like him, I think his game is done. The fact that he was so against conversation at the live tribal, including Ben. I'm going to include Ben on this one. I love you, buddy, but I'm not going to let you out of this either. The fact that they were so against it tells me these are not gamers. These are not endgame gamers at all. And Hunter basically didn't even get up for that conversation. You know what that tells me? Hunter is not involved in these conversations if Tevin is not involved. So now that Tevin's gone, what's Hunter to do? He's on his own. Now, before we can end the episode, you know what time it is now. It's time for Survivor 43 winner Mike Gabler to give his Hiding in Plain Sight winner award for the week. Check it out.
Hiding in plain sight!
Oh my God, what an episode that was. I'm thinking the only thing that could qualify as hiding in plain sight that episode was the bag of rice, because that's about all that did get seen. But it was a great episode with a lot of good stuff. If I've got to pick somebody, and I do, I'd have to pick Charlie, because I think Charlie did a great job talking to everybody. He had all the information passing through him. He even used the information correctly that Q slipped up on Tiffany's idol to blow up and cause a lot of chaos that will not come back on him and actually earn him some trust. So really a great episode for Charlie. Super fun episode all around. I love Survivor. Take care, y'all. Bye-bye.
Hiding in plain sight!
This was a very interesting episode for moving forward. I think Q's going to get his ass chewed up by Tiffany next episode. Can't wait. It's going to be really fun. And we have a really fun hurdle coming ahead for the rest of the Survivors. It's going to be great. We're going to be moving toward the end of the season in a couple weeks. I don't want it to end anytime soon, but it looks like it's going to be pretty great. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching the Survivor Super Fun Time Show. Let me know what your favorite part of the episode was, and if there's anything else that you want to talk about specifically pertaining to this episode and beyond. Otherwise, hope you have an amazing day, everyone. You take care. Goodbye.